Good evening and welcome to tonight's event, The Relationship Business, Converting Connections into Clients, hosted by the AIA San Francisco chapter in collaboration with the Practice Committee of the AIA San Francisco chapter. And I will talk more about that later. Um, I wanted to give I wanted to thank the AIA San Francisco chapter for setting this event up, in particular Amy Ress, who sits at the front desk. She's the deputy executive director, and Carolyn Hoyne. She was here as well, also helping on the front desk. They really were instrumental to that. Special thanks and a shout out go to Lisa Bokarin, who helped me set up this event and who agreed short notice to step in and be on the panel since Mallory Wall with BCCI Construction is not able to join us tonight. So thank you very much. Um, this event is, we're talking about business development. This event is actually tagging on to a series of events that I have been hosting over the last 8 years, uh, over 20 events with several AIA chapters in California, the San Francisco chapter, the East Bay chapters, Los Angeles, and Central Valley. And they're meant to provide new perspective on matters that are relevant to A&D businesses. Now, business development is critical at the beginning of the year, in particular, for any firm, because you are supposed to do your strategy session of the year or of the years to come to define a course of action, if you will. So we're honing in on that, and you can help yourself and your firm set a direction for that. The event is, we structured it so we have about 45 minutes of conversation and could be longer, 45 minutes to an hour, and then we have 15 minutes to 30 minutes of Q&A. So if you have questions, I ask you to hold them until the end and ask them when we pass the microphone around and we can answer your questions at that time. Let me introduce myself. So my name is Elizabeth Sporer. I'm a business strategy consultant and business management consultant for A&D firms. I'm also a trained executive coach. My path in the industry is over 25 years long, probably more like 30 years at this point. And I've been working myself through the ranks of architecture firms, from designer to leading teams, to managing teams, to leadership teams, to managing the leadership team. And now I am a consultant since 8 years. I work with over 50 clients throughout the United States and help them develop strategies and initiatives to enhance the performance of their businesses. Let me introduce you the panel. So I invited Julie Satterwhite, who is the Vice President of Business Development and Marketing at women-owned Quesada Architects here in San Francisco. Welcome. We have Jessica Rafferty, who is the US Business Development Leader for environmental and lighting design firm Atelier 10. And we have Lisa Bokarin, who works for the A&D community as brand strategist and creative consultant. Welcome as well. Before we get it, let's get into why don't you talk more? I would ask everybody to, on the panel, to introduce yourself a little bit more in depth. Tell us what you do what is your position? What is your firm doing? What is the work you do and what kind of responsibilities do you have? And I asked Julie to take a lead on that.
Can you hear me? Ooh, I might sing a song first. Would that be okay? No. Hi, so I'm Julie Satterwhite. Thank you for introducing me, Vice President of Marketing and Business Development for Quesada Architecture. We are a women and minority-owned business, and we have a really diverse project list portfolio. everything from commercial, institutional type of work. We do resi, we do hospitality, we do aviation, and healthcare as well. So really a very diverse mix. And my job and primary responsibility is to really partner with the partners and collaborate with them to help identify new clients and opportunities, nurture existing relationships, and and then acquire the work, and ideally profitable work that will help grow the business. So that's who I am. That's what I do.
Well, thank you. I met Julie, by the way, about a decade ago when she was hosting women leadership circles at Rutherford and Chiquin's office. Oh, yeah. Jessica, I met well over a decade ago, I guess, while working at EHCD. We both worked at that firm at that time. I was what is called director of practice. And I think you were a marketing manager and marketing coordinator. And you've gone a long way in your career. So tell us more about it.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I am Jessica Rafferty with Atelier 10 for about past, it's going on 12 years now. So I am U.S. business development leader. So I actually manage our U.S. group. So that's about 10 different environmental designers across the U.S. Not designers, directors. So there's about 10 directors that I collaborate with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And then we have a group, a wonderful marketing group that I also manage. So there's 3 people in our New York office, 2 people in our San Francisco office. So we have a pretty robust marketing team. And yeah, then we collaborate with our international offices. So there's about 8 international offices as well. So it's a lot going on, a lot of hats to wear. But yeah, I love doing BD, and I studied architecture, so I kind of got pulled into this world and haven't left. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Lisa, I met almost 2 decades ago by now. I know yeah. We also met at the HED. I was director of practice. You were the marketing director. And you have also gone on have an interesting path since. So tell us more about that.
And before I launch into that, this was not intended that this was going to be an EHDD skewed panel. I was supposed to be working behind the scenes. So thank you for indulging me and thank you for having me. My background is in marketing. I worked for developers, real estate developers, doing marketing before I segued into working with architects and designers. And that's where I added BD to my repertoire, if you will. So I was director of marketing at the San Francisco Design Center, and then I was director of marketing at EHDD. And I would describe my current role, I'm a consultant, but um, at EHDD, I should say, my role was a hybrid of marketing and business development support. And I put the word support in because unlike Julie and Jessica, BD was not my primary responsibility, but neither was marketing. It was kind of a hybrid. And I think at that time, um, marketing professionals in the AEC industry were crossing over to doing more marketing work instead of just strict BD. And that was my observation. And so we had a marketing team of 2 marketing coordinators. We had a graphic designer, and we worked on marketing initiatives such as PR, events, as well as business development support, meaning proposal production. It was a very heavy proposal production in the office, and interview prep, and also lead tracking. So I would describe my role as BD adjacent, and hopefully I can bring something relevant and meaningful to the conversation.
Cool, thank you. Now you have a panel of experts up here, and as I said, we have many years of experience working with the A&D industry. Now we want to know a little bit more about you as the audience. So give us a show of hands if your primary responsibility in the firm you're working with or your own firm is doing business development. All right, I see a few hands. not too many, maybe under 10, I would say 5-ish or so. Okay. So it's about 5 to 10%. Now, show me your hand if you are doing business development, but your role is primarily more like a technical, being an architect, designer, engineer, or being on the administrative team. All right, now the hands go up. I like that. Yeah, so that was maybe 35 to 50%. And now give me a show of hand if you're not doing business development at all. All right. Okay, a few. And are you on the technical side, doing architecture or engineering, or are you on the administrative side? Technical, yeah, more on the technical side. So, okay, interesting. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. Before we get into the conversation, I wanted to ask the panelists, give me in 3 words what you think business development is mostly about, or for you. Anyway, either way. And I asked Jessica to take a lead on that.
Connecting the dots. Connecting the dots.
Identify, nurture, acquire. Can I just expound? Identify, or excuse me, identify new clients and opportunities, nurture your existing clients. That's really key. And then acquire new business. I know it is. No, I did the 3 words. Identify, nurture, acquire. Those are the 3 words. But I wanted to expound because they're a little bit vague.
So mine is within the context of marketing, pursuit per positioning. And by that, I mean, BD is about pursuing business. Branding and marketing is about positioning your business. And so in my mind, those two are 2 halves of the same whole.
I'm much simpler. I just say, get out there. More to myself than anything else. All right, let's start our conversation. So, Julie, tagging on to your 3 words, what are some of the major changes you've seen in the business development kind of pre and pandemic area? You can even go into the pre-pandemic area, like the good old days with.
Can't remember. Pre-pandemic. Yeah, I can speak to that. But I think some of it's I think we all kind of like have seen such a transformation. So pre-pandemic, I remember, it was traditional, networking events, going to conferences, face to face, that's what we did. And even you could pick up the phone and call people, and you actually have people pick up the phone when you called them. I feel like that was pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, digital transformation, virtual world. In many ways, it has made business development more efficient, effective from a cost standpoint. If you have to meet with a client, you don't have the budget to fly to Los Angeles, you can do a virtual Zoom call, right? You have access to LinkedIn, which has changed and transformed business development in so many ways. And we'll talk later about how you can use that to your advantage to really tap into understanding clients and connecting further with them. And trying to make a phone call, it feels weird now. Like when I don't just pick up the phone to call people anymore. You have to schedule meetings now to talk to people. And I think it's because people spend so much time in meetings, in teams, that they just don't want to pick up the phone. I don't know. That's just been my experience, that has really been a change, sort of the new world of business development. But I do think that we have so many more tools at our fingertips that can help us understand prospects, understand clients, see what clients are doing, right? LinkedIn shows you their activities, the awards they're winning, the projects they're doing. There's a lot of information out there for us. So I think that's definitely been a positive. But I also think that people have missed the in-person like we had before. And I am seeing more and more where people are really trying hard to have events where people can connect face to face in person, so it is coming back. And I'm really happy about that, because I think from my standpoint, development really is about connecting with people. And you said connecting the dots, which ultimately the development of business is that. But you have to first connect with people. And it's really hard to do that through a screen and on a phone. But if you have an opportunity to see eye to eye with someone, have a conversation and really learn about them and, vice versa, right? Just connect. That is power. And so I think we're coming back to that more. And I'm really happy to see that.
I have a follow-up question for you. So how do you find, I mean, getting connected and connecting with people, yes, but how do you find the connection? How do you find where to go and how to connect with the people? What do you suggest for that?
That's a great question. So first of all, I try to be as strategic as possible and have targets, right? So you have target lists of people and firms that you want to be in front of. And I try to choose professional organizations and events where those people will be attending so that I can, see them there. But I think, you have to your point, you have to get out there to connect with people. But you can do your homework and, know what they're involved in, and you can ask people who know them. You can see their LinkedIn with someone, and you can say, hey, do you know what organization they're involved in? Somebody that's a friend of yours might know. Those are other ways to do it. But honestly, when you go to events, you might end up running into an opportunity of meeting somebody that maybe wasn't on your strategic list. So you do have to be open-minded about that too, because you can't just be completely, focused, because sometimes you miss opportunities.
And also, just to add on to that, as a reminder, if you are invited to speak at an event, you can definitely ask people for the attendee list.
Yes.
People forget that, and just if you're invited, they're most likely going to give you that attendee list. And then you can prepare yourself like, oh, I know that person. I know that person. And that really gives you a leg up and kind of can help you strategize who you need to make sure you meet at the end of the day. So that then it's not so open-ended and
Right.
such a big, long list of people to meet. Yeah.
I think for me, I identify as a shy person. I'm an introvert. And so business development, I think, is predominantly for extroverts. So what the pandemic has done is it's allowed people who have to do BD but are not extroverts to use marketing and PR as a passive way of doing BD. And I say this because when clients or potential clients come to me, they say, oh, we want to take our firm to the next level. And we have to identify what that next level means to them. But the expectation that I often have to deal with is that marketing and PR are not going to take the place of BD, because BD is relationship building at the end of the day. But for those of us who are shy about going to an event and greeting people and exposing ourselves, really, there is a way to do what I call passive BD through social media, through LinkedIn. And the success rate is still low, but I know of firms who have gotten hospitality jobs through their LinkedIn, their Instagram feed, and I have gotten clients through LinkedIn. So it's a very different way of connecting, but it's possible to make those connections still.
I take advantage of that system myself. I do my outreach via newsletter. Most of you may receive my monthly newsletter, and I tag on with the events I host. And I have been doing a lot of them online. I do more and more in person again, but it's a combination of using technology and being in touch and creating the connections while meeting in person. Well, Jessica, like Julie, you have worked in business development in a design firm, architecture firm, engineering firm. And I believe that business development is done in these kinds of firms is similar yet somewhat different. Can you elaborate a little bit on that and maybe tag on more on the technology side of what we just kind of scratched on? What's your opinion on that? How technology can be used and is used in business development?
Right. With my experience at design firms versus engineering firms, I have found design firms can be a little bit more, there's more in like, you're making decisions sometimes based on instinct. And I found at engineering firms, it's very data driven. So I have to do my homework before I show up to that meeting with lots of data. Which there's a nice in between there.
Does that mean they listen to you then?
Yeah, and sometimes you think more data, oh, they'll finally listen, but yeah, it's I found that has been kind of the difference between the two. And then technology wise, my opinion, technology is a very useful tool. Um, I use I use CRM and social media throughout the day. And do I think technology is going to save all of your problems? No, but I do think it can be extremely useful to pinpoint like pain points. You can use that data to actually figure out where you might be hurting and how. Then you have to use critical thinking though to figure out what the solution is for that. So technology can only get you so far. It's not a
Can you
crystal
give
ball.
some examples? I'm curious. Yeah.
Yeah. So this past year, with using our, we put in quite a bit of time and energy into pursuing a new type of client that we hadn't actually put in. We hadn't specifically put a lot of time and effort in. So we decided, oh, let's speak at these conferences. We identified where we needed to be, what were the presentations that we had to do, who were the people that we had to connect with. And we put in quite a bit of time and energy. And then at the end of the year, the CRM, we were able to use the data from that to see, did our inquiries increase with that data, with that client? Did we see any change? We didn't. So guess what? We pivot. We're no longer going to invest our time in that specific because that's a lot of time, and time is money for professional services. So we decide, okay, well, that strategy didn't work. And that's not exactly where those clients are. It's not that they weren't in the they didn't have the privilege to hire us. They weren't getting the funding to bring us on. So, and they were beholden, but they were able to point us in the right direction to who they were getting work from. So from that, we were able to get leads to different projects. So that worked out, but it wasn't that particular client that worked out. So
You
Elizabeth?
mentioned also LinkedIn that you teach your team to use LinkedIn intensively. Can you
I wouldn't
gi-
say
give us some clues how to do that?
I wouldn't say intensively. So I do think social media has its use, but you have there's only so much time in the day. You have projects, and the projects come first. Billable is what you need to focus on at the end of the day. However, you can strategically use social media. Identify a time in your day, your commute. Now, if you don't have a commute anymore, put it on your calendar 15 minutes at the very beginning of your day, go on LinkedIn, figure out what you're going to post yourself, make it personal, not too personal. That's always a fun line. But people really they want to hear about you. They don't want to hear marketing speak. So if you can post about a project that you worked on, but your personal like experience, people are going to resonate with that. And you could just put that on a Monday morning. Beginning of the week is better for those posts. Things get lost over the weekend. So FYI, schedule it on Monday, Tuesday in the morning, get it out there, and then let go of LinkedIn. You don't have to be on LinkedIn all day. Just schedule a certain window of time for yourself and then focus on your billable projects.
I want to add to what Jessica said, because I think before the pandemic, people were like, oh, LinkedIn, I would never be on LinkedIn, especially the architects and designers. They wanted to be on Instagram. But LinkedIn, when you think about it, is a pre-qualified group of people. They are there for business. On Instagram, you don't know. So there is a reason why people like Richard Branson, Ashton Kutcher, Kim Kardashian. I can't believe I'm saying her name in an AIA event, but they are now on LinkedIn. There's a reason that they have realized and recognized the potential. Now that being said, it is a professional network, but what I'm seeing with LinkedIn is it's a very easy, again, for the shy people, the introverts, or those people who are doing other things in addition to BD. It's a very passive way of connecting with people. And you do have to stay on it a little bit, because if somebody responds to your post, you want to be able to respond to them right away, because then you start a conversation. But LinkedIn is it's low hanging fruit, really, and you don't have your commute time. It's just very easy to do.
Yeah,
So
I have a designer and one of our directors. She decided she was too addicted to LinkedIn that she stopped using it. I was like, well, you can, and she didn't want it on her phone. I was like, just schedule time on your calendar, only use it on your desktop at work, and schedule it, because you're not going to just keep opening it throughout. Just schedule that small amount of time, check for messages. Um, and yeah, do that on a weekly
you can
basis so you don't miss a message,
you can
especially if a
publish
client contacts.
you can publish articles on LinkedIn. So for those people that are wanting to do thought pieces, and it's very hard from a PR standpoint to shop these thought pieces around to media. One, the landscape has thinned, and two, it has to be a really good thought piece for you to be in Metropolis or wherever you think you want to be. But if you self-publish on LinkedIn, you would be surprised. And to Jessica's point, I republished an article I wrote for Small Firms, Great Projects, but it had a more personal story to start the post. And I got like 56,000 impressions, which never happens. I don't know why it got that, but maybe it was a personal thing and it was adaptive reuse. So maybe the topic kind of connected. That's the other thing. You have to be able to know what's trending on LinkedIn, not to be one of those people, but you have to know, you have to meet the audience where they want to be. So if adaptive reuse is a hot topic and you can um, connect to that topic and speak to that topic in a way that will be relatable, then do it, because then you're joining the conversation. So LinkedIn for thought leadership type pieces, then you can test that, and your PR person then can say to a magazine, oh, they have they can show you a sample of this thought piece and they can expand on it. It's a good way to test and self-publish.
And what about using LinkedIn to find potential clients or so? Is there any way that we call it, I'm not calling it stalking, not going in that direction, but I mean, use it as a resource. How could that
I
be
do.
done?
I use LinkedIn, not to stalk, although that is interesting. Um, I think what I usually do, if there's somebody I'd like to get to know, I'll look them up, get to understand sort of their background, see who I know is connected with them. And most of the time, yeah, the 6 degrees of separation, 3 degrees of separation nowadays, right? Somebody probably knows that person potentially. So that's an a easy way to actually, see if they can, yeah, help connect you. But yeah, I tend to like, I use LinkedIn a lot more as follow up. I think when I meet someone at an event that I really want to follow up with, and they don't have a business card, 'cause sometimes people don't carry business cards anymore, but some people still do, like me, because I like them. But they're like, I'm sorry, I don't have a business card. I'm like, well, do you mind if I take a picture of your name tag and I'll follow up with you on LinkedIn? And so I got the name tag. Sometimes I even take a picture of their face, just because I don't post it, of course. But I go and I look them up, and then I can make the connection through LinkedIn, and then sometimes I can find their email and then tell them I'm going to follow up by email. I try different tactics to get through to people. I'm usually pretty successful. It's not 100% successful, but if you meet somebody that you want to get to know, you need to be really good at the follow through right away. Don't wait a week. Do it in 24 to 48 hours, because people forget that they met you. But if you do it quick, they'll be, oh yeah, I remember meeting that person. They said they were going to follow up, and they did. Oh, that's cool. That's the kind of person I want to work with. Someone who follows through, right? You're setting the stage for the kind of person you're going to be to work with.
So some kind of old tricks come back, right? I mean, we talked also about dress the part, and since we all seem to get out more out of the house and get out there, and the old kind of saying is that you have to dress how you want to be perceived and how you want to engage in a business relationship. Do you want to add on to that a little bit?
Oh, I gotta be honest. I like being comfortable and I like wearing tennis shoes because I walk all over the city. And I used to always carry a spare pair of shoes to change into every time I went to a meeting. And then I started noticing that a lot of my clients were wearing tennis shoes too. And I'm like, okay, well, then I don't have to wear dressy shoes. But as much as it is to be really comfortable and we all want to be comfortable, I think we do have to remember that we're still in business and, first impressions count. And it's hard for me too, because believe me, I would rather wear the cozy, comfortable outfit, the jeans and a pair of comfortable tennis shoes. But I do think that, yeah, dress for success, dress for the part, know who your audience is, know where you're going, and keep, definitely keep that in mind because you will definitely give a better impression if you're not coming in sloppy and super comfortable.
And also for those who are just starting in their career or wanting to like step into BD or start having that role, having a client facing role, and you're not getting invited to the client meetings, maybe check what you're wearing to the office. Just or like if you're not showing up presentable to a client could invite you to a meeting last minute, and the director might need your help or a principal might need your help. So if you look the part, they'll bring you along. But if you're in your workout clothes, it might not be your day.
Lisa, your brand focus is close to BD, as you said, or BD adjacent. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that? And Julie, I want to tap into your double role as well, because you hold both titles right now.
I think the double roles, I came in, like I said, I worked for a real estate development company that was headquartered in Chicago years ago. They did shopping centers. So I did shopping center marketing. And then I did marketing for the design center, but they were for developers. It's a very different approach. So when I came into architecture, I noticed that it was very more linear in terms of the roles. And maybe there were only a few firms who were actually tapping the potential of marketing to actually help you grow your business. It was very BD, like we probably know it from old school BD. And if Mallory were here, I think I heard her say, golf games. That was the thing back in the day. So the thing about the work I do is if you position yourself, and let me backtrack. When clients come to me, they say, we're going to take it to the next level. What do you mean by that? Oh, I want to get published in so and so. That means they want to be seen as, they want to rise above the crowd. They want to be perceived as different from their peers. And they think that PR will do it for them. What happens most of the time is they're not ready for PR. Why? Because they need to figure out the marketing. And what is that marketing? It usually will involve your website. It usually involves some deeper strategy work about who it is you want to be, who are the clients you want to pursue, what market sectors do you want to be in. So it's all of these strategy questions that a lot of people don't have time to do because you're doing the work. And so to actually take time to focus, I think will help clients. And this is where the marketing component comes in. So it really, I look at all of our work as it has to benefit the business plan at the end of the day. So what Elizabeth does, there has to be a business plan. When a client comes to me, I always ask them, what's your business plan? So out of that business plan comes the brand strategy. Out of the brand strategy comes the marketing strategy, and then the business development strategy. So we're all supporting the business plan. So that's what I mean by a hybrid where it's more cross-pollinated than even when I started.
Yeah, I mean, the explaining the difference exactly between PR, marketing, and brand and business development is critical to really understanding that. We have been having that conversation on and off. I was teaching professional practice also at CCA for a while and brought Lisa in to talk about brand and marketing. That's when I really started thinking out, okay, understanding what the differences are, I guess. Do you want to go back into that a little bit?
I think so we are talking brand. Well, usually marketing is overhead because there's no KPI necessarily that's tied to marketing, although there could be. You could assign key performance indicators. Um, Marketing is really your vision for your company. So these are the brand statements, if you will. I'll just keep it simple. Your mission, your vision, and your brand statements. Who are we? Who do we want? How do we want present ourselves out there? And then out of that brand work, um, I do marketplace positioning. Who are your competitors? You have to know the landscape you're. So that's all marketing work. And then the BD really is how do we pursue the work that we want to pursue based on our business plan and who we are. The thing I tell clients is PR is not for everyone. Social media is not for everyone. Don't feel don't have FOMO. Just because your competitor is on social media doesn't mean you have to be. So you have to find a wise young man told me years ago, there are many ways to make the same amount of money. So you figure out the way that works for you. And I think that's probably the hybridization of business development and marketing and brand. But for me, you have to have a good foundation of brand of who you are so that your clients know who you are and what they're buying at the end of the day.
I also encourage my clients and everybody, now that we're still at the beginning of the year, set the tone for the year. Figure out what is your goal for the year or for the next 2, 3, 4 years, whatever, however long you want to look out, and answer the big questions. Do you want to grow the firm? Do you want to increase your outreach? And if what? Is it an outreach geographically? Is it an outreach in a different client sector, in a different project typology? Do you want to pursue more profitable work? Then you have to know which work is profitable and how do you get that? Do you have the expertise? Do you need to hire strategically to pursue that? Do you have to diversify? And if you do that, how do you get there to really pursue that? So these are the basics that you have to have in place, I guess, to do the real outreach and to use marketing tools to support that, I guess. Well, good. I want to bring it back to the technology one more time, kind of wondering. I, we talked about LinkedIn a lot, and I heard CRM, and I want to go back into that a little bit too. CRM stands for Client Relationship Management, kind of databases, if you will. Are there any other tools or trends worth mentioning?
I I don't want to say that every firm needs a CRM. So I do want to just
Thank you for saying that.
yeah.
'Cause I work for a
Especially
small
small
firm.
firms. Yeah. They are expensive. They're not
And they require a lot of
a
time.
lot of time
to
investment.
put money
Yeah.
to put
They are not
information
going
in.
to solve all your problems. They a simple Excel worksheet could really just help you organize yourself.
I consider that a
Um,
CRM.
Yeah, it's like you can outline your target sectors, your client types all within an Excel worksheet. You really don't need to invest all that money in our CRM system. Um, they I so I don't think there is technology for everybody that could help. There's just different types of technology. So you don't have to spend all that money on the software. You could have like an Excel worksheet just to organize yourself. So I do want to just
Well,
point that out.
I actually really loved what Lisa had to say because this is really important. We can't do everything, so choose wisely, and you have to be really honest with yourself as a firm. In terms of social media, like what really matters. You don't have to do everything. Everybody's like, oh, you got to do Instagram, you got to do this. Maybe that isn't important to you. Maybe just LinkedIn is important to you, and you're just going to focus on that. But choose wisely all of these different things because it's costly. It's because time is money, and you want to be relevant, and you want to be. If you're going to do something, you got to do it frequently enough, not too frequently, right? Because you've all gotten the posts from people who are always posting. And you're like, really? It's like so much noise. I don't even want. I'm going to ignore you now. That's not good. But so choose wisely because then you can actually put the best effort into that tool or that social media app, whatever it is that you're doing, and it's going to be the best. It's going to come out well. So I think that's really important for everybody to think about, right? And you don't have to do it all. It's not for everybody. Not everything is for everybody.
And
If you think about social media, and I consider LinkedIn as social, so Facebook, IG, TikTok, LinkedIn, socials. If you walk around the city and put your postcard on a physical bulletin board at Whole Foods, and then you forget about it, 2 years later, it's still there. But maybe your postcard has been updated and you don't even know. So if you're on too many of these social media sites, your house for residential firms, your house profile may not have been updated in 5 years because now you're focused on Instagram. You're chasing, oh, because this firm is on Instagram, your marketing team is now focusing on Instagram. And somebody forgot about the house thing. So it's still your digital footprint is still there. So be careful where you leave it.
some of you are probably also asking, well, how do you choose? So all of these websites, you can find out who their audience are, who is their audience. You can find out the age demographics. Most of this information's online. So for us, we went through this. Many firms go through this where it's like, well, there's this new website. Should we be part of this? Should we be part of this one? I saw this firm being on this one. Look at who your clients are. Take a poll of what their demographics are. Take a poll of what clients you want to bring in, and then look at the demographics of those audiences and pick one or two. Like, you don't have to be on all of them, and they all have different demographics too. So that's how we made the choice on how much time and effort do we put into one social media platform, and some we've let go. We've completely let go of like at least two of them. So
I want to focus a little bit more big picture again, kind of bring us back and zoom out. I mentioned future proofing in the learning objectives when we advertised for the event. So I'm asking my panelists future proofing can relate to what I mentioned before, like setting initiatives at the beginning of a year or of a strategic plan that you diversify, that you expand, that you grow, that you become an expert, however you want to go about it. Give us a clue of what you think are for you relevant tactics or initiatives for future proofing. We can also talk about succession planning because that's also future proofing, right? And you have to make sure that you have successors in place and that they have the skills. And I guess that's what I would think in bigger firms, you probably have to invest quite some time in that. Tell us more.
Well, I just sort of wanted to put this word out. There's all these different things we have to think about for future proofing. But as an individual in a firm, you all are part of firms. We want to help create stability and growth for our firms, and so we need to sort of need to have others help us be out there and bringing in the work. And there are key people that are on their way up, right? The next generation that we need to mentor, groom for the the roles that they will fill. And but regardless, it's difficult for firms to, they say they want to mentor, they say they want to do all of that, but often firms don't do a very good job. And so I guess my message is to the people out here who came here that don't do any business development or do minimal business development. The onus is on each and every one of us to do our part to help our firms. And don't wait for somebody to train you. Don't wait for somebody to mentor you. Find a mentor, train yourself. There's so many things online that you can access. There's LinkedIn people that are really inspiring, but you have the opportunity to be, a really important contributor to your firm. You don't have to wait for somebody, is my point. And I think that's really important because I noticed that in my own career, the way that I was able to get to be a chief marketing officer is because I just started taking initiative and doing things and learning, and doors opened for me. And that's kind of how it works too with clients and opportunities. You get out there and you start meeting people and you start figuring things out, and then opportunities open for you. So I would say that is just something I would sort of put out there for future proofing, sort of it starts with you.
I know there were quite a few hands here too that are business development roles specifically, and you're in charge of actually training the next generation too. So some of the tips that I can give to people who've been with a firm for a really long time still might feel uncomfortable selling themselves. And sometimes, and they just don't know what they're supposed to ask. So I have found in my company, um, I've made BD like talking points just to give our directors, our newer directors, some guidelines of like, these are some of the things that might like pull some information out of this client. Also, before you go meet with a very specific client, come talk to me. We can brainstorm things that might be good questions. And they just, having those conversations before they go meet the client really helps. But also, I've given them like little cheat sheets. I remind everybody, don't keep your cheat sheet out when you're talking to clients. Yeah, do not read a script. Try to be as natural as possible. And sometimes it just takes a few times to talk to those clients to really um, hone in on like where your intuition of those questions. Sometimes the person doesn't have the intuition at first, but it can be grown. And then I find people who are newer to business development are really trying to build their client list, meeting with them on like a monthly basis and just giving them a short, here are the people I think you need to talk with. And here are the different ways. Sometimes they don't reply, but that doesn't mean anything. That's like that we'll meet next month and see what happened. And then there might be a different way to approach that client. Oh, and let's go through your LinkedIn connections for this company. Oh, you just met this person. So it's those newer people, they do need a little bit of hand holding at first, but I do think then once they feel more confident, they and up and running, they can really do it themselves. So I don't think the hand holding needs to go forever. That's a problem.
I would think that bringing them along at the beginning to meetings where they can observe and just be there might help too and gain so they can gain confidence.
Yeah, some of the directors that have worked at my company for years will go with one of our like our managing director, and they're just like, I didn't think about asking those questions. Oh, so just you don't realize, you think you're you think everybody knows everything, but yeah, until they see it in action, then they're like, wow, you just walked around and just introduced yourself to people. Okay, yeah.
Um, Three things. First thing is client retention is probably going to be less expensive than client acquisition. So client relationships project, I have done anonymous surveys for clients, architects, where I talk to their clients, and sometimes people that didn't end up hiring them. And sometimes it's just a matter of the project manager never called to ask me how the project was going after it was done. So you'd be surprised at what your clients really just want from you. They don't, a lot of them just want to be um, cared about, and they know that, oh, you're top of mind. So client retention. The second thing has to do with what Ina Garten said about being in a pond. She said, if you're in a pond and you keep hitting the sides of the pond, you're in the wrong pond. And this is related to 6 degrees of separation, because you could exhaust your 6 degrees of separation and you're already hitting the pond walls. So something to think about. Third thing is serendipity, which is counterintuitive to future proofing. But you never know who you'll meet. You don't always have to be in BD mode, if you will. And I will have an example. We had a designer, I think Elise at EHDD, who rode the ferry from Marin, she on her bicycle every morning, struck up a conversation with another bicycle rider. Over the course of several months, he was the brewmaster for, was it Anchor Brewing Company? And so she got intel before any proposal was released that they were doing a project. So it's very, you never know, but she didn't set out to to get business from this person. They just shared the ferry and a bicycle. So sometimes your commute could turn into something more meaningful.
Good. Switching topics again a little bit. Talking about KPIs, key performance indicators. Now, me being the operations person on the panel, I really love numbers. I like to track success and benchmarks and that. So I track my business development efforts very, very succinctively in Excel. Yes, I use that. But I track who I reach out to, when, what do we agree to or not agree to? Is there an action item? Is there follow up? And I update that constantly. And I recommend to all my clients that they do the same, or have a real CRM system that does the same. Um, just want to, I know we touched briefly on that. I'm, I'm pretty sure the bigger firms have CRM systems, right? I mean, what do you use? Is it Salesforce? Is it Deltek or?
Cosential.
Hmm?
Cosential.
I see.
I'm not happy with it. Never happened.
Yeah, some of my clients use a system called Close. I tried it out. It didn't work for me. It's basically encouraging a lot of outreach because it measures how many calls you do and how many things you close. Um, it works for some, I guess. Yeah. A simple Excel spreadsheet, that's fine. Yeah. Lisa and Julie, do you have any insights on that?
Well, well, I worked for a large firm prior to this current firm, and we had it all. And I had a 15-person team that managed a lot of the data, um, and tracking. But I think at the end of the day, it's really like from business development, it was literally people would come every week and we would meet and they would share, what they did. And then the marketing coordinator would capture it and try to put it into the Deltek. And then it would just sit in there. So I would say use a system that works for you, but also make sure you're strategic and you're focused, right? You know who you're meeting, you know who you're trying to meet with, you know who you met with, right? You be strategic and clear on that. And the system that you use that works for you is going to be key because you only have so much time to capture it.
I did, I mean, I remember at EHD, they had a simple Word or whatever Excel spreadsheet, I think, but it separated also like the real pursuits to the ones that are just leads, like, and where you basically have just a hunch or an idea, but still you kind of put it out there that you might pursue it when the time is right, is ready and is ripe. But also active efforts, because if you pursue projects, you invest quite some time in it, and it's good to budget for that. So that goes beyond what I do because I'm a one person firm. But if you have like several staff, I would recommend really track that and be strategic about how much of your time you put into business development and your teams or support team, however many people you have.
I have a I am Elizabeth and I have had this conversation about how much should you allocate for marketing because you don't really get the KPI necessarily. Although, like I said earlier, you could. So your key performance indicators for marketing could be related to PR. What is the value of the editorial coverage that you received in 1 year? And those things can be tracked, not accurately because each publication you're relying on their data, but it can be tracked. So you go back to your principal group and say, the marketing budget for this year, let's just say was $10, but we did one event, and we were able to do business development from that one event, and we got one project, and we did a PR campaign that generated $30,000 worth of publicity. So now you're ahead. So I think the KPI is different, but I will say about CRM at the design center, Deltek is not a word that am comfortable hearing just because um, it's just the design center took I don't know how long, and then at EHDD there was the Deltek thing as well. The thing about databases is they're live. If they're only as good as what you do with them. So if you're going to get overwhelmed by tracking 1,000 records, then don't have 1,000 records because you can say I only can handle 100 leads at a time that I will really manage, and then use LinkedIn for the rest. So you don't feel like you have to, and for smaller firms especially, do not let a sense of overwhelm stop you from doing business development or something else, because it can be overwhelming. Oh my God, I have a bunch of business cards. What am I going to do with this?
Be strategic with the business cards too.
Exactly. But also, if you're gathering that much data, you might consider doing an e-newsletter, because that is um, social media. You can get tuned out. People will scroll. Impressions are meaningless unless they engage with your post. But an e-newsletter, they can subscribe or unsubscribe. And if you have a high open rate, that means you have an engaged audience. You never know who might call you up one day and say, I've been a subscriber for 2 years and I'm ready to work with you. But newsletters are an investment because it's more personal, it's more of your time. But I would highly recommend, if you're gathering that much data, do something with it that is maybe more passive, which is a newsletter.
I think too, to add to some of the specific KPIs, which I think when you're trying to figure out, there's sometimes the rainmakers in the firm, like the people who are bringing in the work, but you're trying to improve the next generations too. And I know the taboo topic is tracking per person, like who's bringing in what clients, who's bringing in the most money, and that can be a really sensitive topic. Um, I track that information. I present it to my team, but I do it in a sensitive way. Like we're all pursuing work as a team, and it helps me to figure out. I track. Our timesheets have everybody track their business development time separately from their billable time. And I look who's spending a lot of time doing BD and maybe not getting the return that they're hoping for, or that we're as a firm hoping for. So those are the people that I know that we need to put more time in, that need a little bit more hand holding. But they're not being punished in any way. We're very open as a group discussing, like, okay, so what went wrong with this? This is a person who's bringing in work, but they're writing tons of proposals, but then they weren't bringing in work anymore. So what was going on there? And they're spending a ton of time, or like there was a particular principal who was spending the most amount of time on proposals and winning the least amount of work. So then you're just like, well, that's too bad. And it was just that they didn't know that the other principals were having other staff do work for them. So that was just a little communication there, and then we were able to help reduce her time. So tracking that information is very useful sometimes. So I wouldn't be afraid of it. I think it's a sensitive conversation too, but I think they're very useful KPIs, especially if you just want to know who needs a little bit more help, who needs a little bit, like some people just rake in the money and it's just like, well, they don't need my help, they're fine. But you need to, there's others that you might need to groom a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, what you're referring to is the data tracking, and I'm a big fan of that. That you do your timesheets and you kind of keep succinct kind of records. Is it a project? Which project? Which phase? And if it's an overhead effort, what kind of overhead effort? Is it a marketing, a business development effort? And what kind of effort? I mean, are you pursuing a specific project or an event preparation and such? So you can at the end of the year analyze how much time did I really spend on that? Was it worth it or not? I do that even for myself to figure out moving forward. Do I put more time on events or more time on newsletters, or do I write articles, or do I do other kind of outreach? So I figure I check on what works best for me, and I recommend everybody doing it. I can do it only because I track what I did the year and analyze that.
To Jessica's point, I think when you're working on proposals, especially for big firms, and this is something I at EHDD, because I came from a developer background where I had a budget and I had to stay under that budget and bring in events that were revenue generating or programs that were revenue generating. So I was very used to reporting on money. And architecture firms at the time probably had a little bit more loose interpretation of reporting. So in terms of proposals, I think a KPI could, to your point, how much money are you spending on each proposal, for example? because you don't want to spend the fee that you have yet to receive from that project. And it is very easy to do that if you're working on a proposal. So that's, I think, to be strategic and selective is a good suggestion, because at the end of the day, it's money. And if you've already spent the design fee that you're not going to get, then
Well, I mean, unless it's a business development effort to pursue a specific project, every now and then you do that because it's a portfolio piece and you know it will break you in the market. I would not be opposed to that.
and residential is a very different animal in terms of, especially high-end residential, very, very different approach to that. So the things that we discussed today will probably not apply to, because high-end residential at the luxury end, when you're doing NDA projects, that's all about relationships. You're usually not doing PR. You're not doing CRM. It's all about, and I'd like to tell clients who are in that space, throw a cocktail party at the client's house. That's how you'll meet your next client. Don't come to me for marketing or PR, because if the client doesn't want you to advertise their job, and I've had clients who have this problem where, oh, it's a beautiful project, I spent 10 years on it, and the client won't let me publish it. Well, did you get paid? Yes, very well, then that's your lane, and it's picking your lane. But if you want to get your next job with the same group, throw a cocktail party. And I actually suggested to one client who said, "Oh, my client wants me to cook for them, because I guess this woman architect cooks, and she maybe brought some food." Very wealthy client. I said, "Do it." She said, "Well, I don't really know how to cook." I said, "Bring a professional with you, but cook for a small group of this client's friends, and you could have the entire block in whatever street you're on for the next 20 years." So that's a future proofing strategy as well, but it's not applicable to everybody. I realize that.
All right. Thank you so much for all your insights. Wow. So I don't know how you feel, but I do business development just as part to do my work, right? So it's not like my work. So I have to make time for it, and as does everybody else. I encourage you, like we all said, be succinct and do little pieces, b- do little pieces at a time, but do schedule them in your week, in your day, so you do make time. Don't just let it slide. Before we go to the Q&A, because I assume you have some questions, I want to give the panelists a last chance to wrap up what they think in 1 minute, kind of what is the essence of business development for you. And I thought that Jessica takes a lead on that.
So for me, business development, I do a lot of research as much as I can before getting out there, but honestly, it's just a lot of eavesdropping too. And I'm just kind of picking up pieces here and there and then talking to my staff. Always asking them for questions and anecdotes so that when I'm out talking to a client, when they're out talking to a client, they know the story that we worked on a different project. So I'm just, when I said connecting the dots, eh, I just feel like I'm always just sharing stories. And a lot of people love a good story. So if you can work on your storytelling and just listen to other people's stories, and that can help you kind of just build on your own storytelling process. That really helps with clients.
Well, I wrote it down because I have such groundbreaking information to share with you. All right, so this is what I think for effective business development. Know what your firm does best and be able to articulate it really well. We can't do everything. We don't do everything really well, even though we like to think we do. So really know those things and make sure that you can communicate that. Learn what your clients need. So do the research to figure out what the client needs, because you can often find information about what's coming up. And then make sure when you do have that meeting with the client or prospect that you ask really good questions. Stay focused on your strategic targets and track the information. Be someone who offers value. And what I mean by that is, you know, I had an example today. Somebody who I just met recently, who's trying to get work from me, interestingly enough, sent me a summary of an AIA webinar they attended. And I was like, wow. I was touched. It's helpful information to me. He provided value. And if I need to hire a rendering service company, I'm going to think about them again. You know, so that was like a touch point. So, you know, be someone who offers value in the different ways that you can. And you can think about that a little bit more. Be helpful and nice. So I have an example of this. I had a situation where I didn't really know the person very well, but I saw that they were in need. Their phone was getting ready to die and they needed to charge it. And they were a really important client that I wanted to make a connection with. So I thankfully had my backpack and I had my charger and I gave it to them and we're having lunch next week. And we've been friends for years now since that was the connecting point. That was the interaction that made it happen, right? It's the simple, nice, helpful. But most importantly, remember this, if nothing else, from what I'm going to share. People do business with people they like and trust. So be likable, be trustworthy, obviously be competent in what you do, but that likability and trust piece is huge with clients.
Tough act to follow. So it goes back to pursuit and positioning. So position before you pursue. And sunscreen. We all have to use it every day. So pick the sunscreen that you will use every day. And by that, I mean in terms of business development tactics. So we're going down a little bit from strategy to tactics. Pick the tactic that works for you. If LinkedIn is your jam, go for it. If you hate going to cocktail parties, don't. Because people will know that you're not enjoying being there. And people will connect to Julie's point. If you're having fun and you're going to attract that energy. But if you're at a cocktail party, you're at the corner because you're very shy or you're tired because you've done all these other things, then you will not attract that energy. So I think be appropriate to yourself, to your firm, and then you'll attract the clients that also your tribe. You'll create your own client tribe.
Wow. Very good. All three. I will not offer a 1-minute rundown myself. I'm bowing out. I didn't prepare, to be honest. Sam, this is intense. I mean, I feel like I have ways to go, as most of you may think. But tonight, take advantage of having the experts here. Ask your questions. So I ask you to raise your hand if you have questions. We give you a microphone. Please tell your name and your firm's name before you pose the question.
Okay,
Go
it's
ahead.
Martin Bernstein, Architect. I've got two comments for Julie, and one for Lisa, and then two general comments. Julie, I think you said something really important, and that is that you're not being hired because of your skill. You're being hired because of a relationship you have with people who need your skill. So relationship is where the money is. And then Lisa's comment, I think this is my interpretation of what you were saying, is that who do you want to call you? Where do they gather? And then go there. Good. Yeah. Okay. And then my two general comments was well, I guess it's just one, is that please talk about for all of you, please talk about your behavior when you're shifting from being in the selling mode to when the person you're with is going to be in a buying mode. Talk about your shift, how you shift your behavior when you're sensing that moment.
I take the last question as a first, and I hope that you guys have more to say. I mean, I know when I'm on and when I'm not on. That's kind of the thing when I engage with others, and I consider actually all interactions that I do in person with others, and I do a lot of calls, by the way, online on phone calls, I'm on when I do those. So whenever I engage with others, I am on. Um, it's I guess it's mostly that there's a great awareness and kind of like a higher energy level. Definitely go into high energy mode right away and project that out.
I'm not, I have to say, I don't go from selling to buying. I'm just having a conversation. And a lot of the work I've gotten has been through referral. So when somebody is referred to me, they're already in buying mode. So we don't even, so that's not really, and because I'm a sole proprietor, I don't have, I'm not on in that way. And you have more, a different, so I don't see it as buying or selling. It's just, you're having a convo, as the kids like to say, and see where it goes.
Yeah, I would say if I'm talking to a prospective client and I'm just engaging in conversation, but it does start to feel like they have a potential project, I usually will start switching gears where I'm just asking a few more specific questions about what they're looking for and what their past experience has been on certain things, just so then you start kind of building an idea. And then that's when you start also just asking, start planning how to follow up with that person. It doesn't hurt to say, oh, would you want to grab a coffee sometime, that like after that event or something, and then doing that follow up right away too.
I guess I have to add, I mean, when I say being on, it doesn't mean only projecting out and selling. The active listening part is also being on. It's a lot of energy to really be able to to understand and listen and do the right follow up with the right questions so that whoever you talk to feels heard and knows, oh yeah, she really gets it. So that's what I mean with being on. Yeah.
May I ask what projects do you primarily work on?
And I just thought about one other comment I want to make too. So most of my, let's say I've done single family residential, done a synagogue, done restaurants, tenant improvement, conference center, community centers, swimming pools. So anyway, yeah, a lot of stuff here. My other comment was, let's see, going back to Julie's comment about what about making phone calls? Yeah, so oftentimes busy managers are not available during 8 to 5 hours to answer a phone. 10 p.m. with their mobile phone, they answer. And all of a sudden, you got a connection. And they will never forget that phone call. And thank you for calling me.
I'm
Thank
not
you
sure
when
I
you're-
would.
Thank you for calling me when I'm not busy.
Oh, interesting. Well, are they
That's-
not
that's-
busy at 10 p.m. maybe watching Survivor or something?
Anyway, that's my other comment
But that
about
is
phone
interesting.
calls.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, Kate Albee, DES. Um, we are a firm that's very fortunate to have long-term clientele who might know specific people and have built those relationships over time, or given us the same scale and scope of project for a very long period of time. But we want to expand on that and maybe ask that client for just a little bit more, a little bit bigger, make introductions within our firm. How would you go about approaching that when you want to expand kind of what you're doing?
I would say go to the most important person within that client. Like, I mean, if it's just one person, then you go to that person and have an honest conversation and say, this is what we're really hoping for. We really love working with you and we have this wonderful history with you. And our goal and our desire is to do this, whatever, right? 50,000 square feet, or you don't have to be so specific, but to say to do more and larger projects with you. And what do we need to do? You know, or, just, having honest conversations are really the key. People appreciate that. And then plus you'll know what you need to do. That's what I would say.
I will add to that, your clients may not know the other work you're capable of doing because they only know you from this one project or several projects. So if there's a way, educate them, do a project tour of one of your, if it's convenient. For example, if your client is a foodie and you did a restaurant, but they don't know that you're also working in restaurants. Invite them to a meal there and then say, oh, we did this. For residential clients, one of the things I say is if you have a residential client who you're working on their house, chances are if they need an office, you can slot into that. You can hire the experts in office design, but if your client trusts you, and I've seen examples of this where somebody does a house for a client in San Francisco, and then all of a sudden, oh, we're moving to Chicago, an office. Can you work on our office as well? Because they trust you. And then you can hire a team that will actually get the work done, but you're still in the client's mind, I can go to this person for anything. Back there. Who else has a question?
Hi, thank you for having us tonight. My name's Ashley from Atlas General Construction. Um, we're always looking for ways to improve collaboration in the industry. So my question is, from your experience, what is one quality you've always wanted from a construction company that you have yet to see when it comes to collaboration?
That was a soft.
Well, most architects do appreciate to have early connections with contractors. But, that may not be in the control of the architect to hire you at an early on, but offer, become a partner to architects, if you will, and offer advice so they can pick up the phone and ask you questions and you can offer, some insights that they may not get otherwise easily.
I would say we love it. We would love it if, we partner with you and you have an opportunity, you hear about an opportunity to refer us, the architect, to a project that you've already been, you've been doing pre-con on or whatever. You're early in the process with a developer or someone to be able to bring in or recommend an architect. That architects love that.
Comment, not as much as a question. Thank you so much for having me. Hi, my name is Nazima. I actually work for myself, but one easy way, like to help your company with BD, at least what I always did, I would just repost. Like on LinkedIn, my company would post something, I would repost. This way, 500 people at least see this post. So at least I would give them exposure because I'm not in marketing at all. I'm actually in accounting, like very technical field. But one way I would step in and help always repost. And to Jessica's point, one of the KPIs many companies would focus in the past would be on the utilization rate, like how billable their employees are, and they have to be like 95% or more. But what the soft point they would miss, many of those employees who at the first glance are like at 70% utilization, they're actually putting so much effort into promotional projects that are not billable. So by implementing on Excel a secondary metric and taking into consideration all the promotional hours they worked on, all of a sudden the utilization rate is like 99% if you account for those soft promotional hours, the soft skills, not necessarily the money that they immediately bring in. Just
Thank you.
Oh, over there. Sorry, my.
Hi, my name is Bill. Thank you, Julie, Jessica, Lisa, and Elizabeth. I don't have any question, but I just want to adding the something. I'm the owner of the Atlas Construction. I doing the business so long. I know I'm young guy, but I see like a face-to-face sale is like a easy. Most important thing I believe for the transparency from the beginning to end. When you meet with the client, I just called when you get the like a short-time marriage. I just say like if you project like a 1 year, 2 year, they want to be like a best experience like a wherever the project time, and then what we learning We like the very transparency number one, and second of all, like we are the most important for the clients. I understanding from the starting the end, they need the wanted what's gonna be happen, from the start and the end. And residential clients is like a very different than the commercial one. Residential clients, my experience, is like a really hard to. They have a zero experience the construction. Most of the commercial client, they have like at least they are done 2 project, 3 project, and then they know how the ball ruling. And for the thanks so much for all your the comment. I just want to say, transparency is very important with the starting end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kathy Merrill, Merrill Morris. We're landscape architects. But I am curious, we're a smallish firm, and staff is pushing for CRM. And I kind of get it for contacts, but they're wanting to also use it for marketing collateral and for maintaining resume, small blurbs, updating, and so forth. Any opinions on that?
It's a lot of time to manage that database. And if you don't have a librarian on staff or it's not going to update itself. So it's a lot of training to figure out that mechanism and that CRM. And somebody's got to update those contacts too in that CRM. So it's not magically going to update itself. So if people are not updating their contacts just in their Outlook or whatever email service they're using, they're probably not going to update it in the CRM. And it's not like you want more admin overhead time doing these things. So yes, like everyone thinks this technology, my hope is that maybe AI could help some of this stuff and it would just update, maybe pulling in the information from LinkedIn, but people don't always update their LinkedIn profiles where they are. But like if they could pull it from your email, oh, that person moved, the email address has changed. Oh my goodness, AI, let's hope that it fixes that. But other than that, I do think for a small firm, there are other ways around doing your marketing collateral. And I don't think a CRM will fix that.
There's a question here, but to the Atlas construction guy, I don't know, there you are. I think transparency is important for construction companies, but having worked for a few construction company clients, your team is the most important calling card you have, because you can, I don't want to say but design is very different than the actual building of something. And that is your calling card. So getting the right people, and I understand it's very hard to get very skilled people in this market, but I think that's what I've seen. And also beware of over expanding or expanding into areas where you do not really have any expertise because you don't have the team to build it, because you're building something and you're only as good as the project that you last built in construction, especially for residential. So we have a question.
Hi, Michaela Leo from DES. I just had a question coming back to the sort of conversation about future proofing and succession planning. How do you advise when you have long-term relationships with clients that you're trying to transition to the next generation? Or for instance, if your client team has kind of changed hands, how do you advise maintaining that trustworthiness when you're introducing a new person into that relationship?
The principal that has that long relationship, or that employee that has that really long relationship, making sure that there's somebody that is attending those meetings that they're bringing in, that they're also that person is also comfortable with handing off those clients. And if they're not comfortable, then that's another conversation to have. And just making sure that you're bringing in, so we've been doing this quite a bit. So there's, if a client really likes this one director, then they're going to keep going to them, even if that director, I don't know, maybe is about to go on maternity leave or like, there's just like, they're not always going to be at the phone. So we always have a 1 and a 2 for our clients. And if there is only a 1, then that's something we have a conversation. Who has a rapport with that client? And how do we get that rapport? And if it doesn't work out, then that's also a conversation we have. We just, so I like to have like, and we have our top clients of like who comes back to us repeatedly, and always making sure that it's not just one person, because that could be, something could happen and then you're out of luck. So always making sure that there is like a couple people, but there might be one person that client just really likes, and that's okay. But then maybe they're kind of the business side or the sales side, and then the person managing that project, leading that project, is another director, and kind of letting them just really expose and kind of show off to that client, like, this is why you come to us, because it's not just me, it's all these other people. And then training your leadership too on how to speak about their other leaders too, like having an elevator pitch about that person that they can talk to and sell that person to that client too.
Hi, Matt Stewart, AI CAD Services. So we're a new firm, and do you have specific recommendations for new firms that are trying to get their toehold into the market?
Be strategic. Focus. Know where you want to get the work from, right? We talked a lot about that tonight, and when you know the type of work you want to do and with which markets or whatever, you can then target it, professional or professional organizations and certain events, you can tap into that. And it's going to take time to build your network, but start tonight, start building your network, and those connections will help you get to the next connection, and you build from there. And it's amazing how quickly you can build a network, but it will take time to get established, but it won't take forever.
Yeah, and also looking back at all the employees' past experience and just seeing like where is the experience, so that you can figure out like, this is where I'm targeting. That'll be the easiest way in, is what is the experience, so you're not just going for everything. And then figuring out where you would like to get more experience, and maybe those are some partnerships too that you can make to get more of that experience too.
Start posting to LinkedIn.
Hi, my name is Weibun. I'm from DES Architects and Engineers. What are you guys laughing about? My question is on social media posts. Could there ever be like a bad post?
Yes.
And so sometimes maybe not posting something is
Yes.
better than, okay, could you?
Don't post. Yeah, if you're not sure, run it by your marketing department. If you're concerned.
Also, there's just a lot of negativity in the world. So if you're about to do a rant on that social media page, maybe you should turn off your computer and walk away. Just as an FYI, I've seen it happen, and I'm just like, why did you post that?
Yeah.
Yes, there are
It
bad posts.
stays, it's there. It stays
Mhm.
connected to you. So yeah, choose your words wisely. And
If you're trying to also build clients want something positive right now, and like most of the time, so nobody wants to bring the Debbie Downer to the party. So it's just, yeah, like try to be a little bit more positive in your posting too. Yeah.
And they notice that you're not very diverse, you'll come off as very disingenuous at least. So they didn't post. So just don't jump on every bandwagon. Jump on the ones that you really can, ride.
More about not necessarily posting like a rant or something, but more like for example, your photography example is, maybe we just finished a project, but our professional photographer is 2 months out. Should we send someone out there and just snap a quick picture? Maybe it's not the best picture, but it's out there, and it's current. Um,
I say put your best foot forward. You can't take it away. It's gonna be there.
So I moderated a panel with Takashi and I, Bert de Viterbo from Gensler, and Paul Vu, who's a photographer. Their Instagram feeds are amazing, and they spend time on their Instagram feeds. Whether it's a trip, it's very, very curated is my point, because if you are a designer or an architect, that's the expectation people have of your feed. And for people who are, maybe your work is not so creative in some cases, it's a way to present it in a creative way. So photography, don't post anything that's not professionally photographed, unless you have someone in your office who is just, IG guru, and they know what they're doing. And there are people like that. And then that's another way to differentiate your feed, is it's taken by employees, but at a very high level of photography. We actually have a question.
Hello, my name is Hajar from Atlas. I have a question for Jessica and Elizabeth, actually, about KPIs. You guys spoke about that. Let's say there's a high volume of leads, however, the conversion rate is pretty low. Do you think, how do you differentiate between there's an issue with the leads or quality of the leads, or there's an issue with the strategy of getting to a sale, for example?
I can take a lead on that. It depends how big the team is that makes the decision, in my opinion. If you are the only one and or even if you are alone, I have actually a set of questions that I would ask you to go through when you decide to pursue a project. And it's 6, 7 questions, and at least the majority of them need to be a yes to make it a go. Otherwise, it's a no-go. So if basically if the majority of the questions are a no, then don't pursue it. No matter what what kind of project it is, but be systematic about it. And those questions should be tied into a bigger goal of what kind of work you want to do in the longer run. And if it's a team, the same should happen, that each project should be vetted by these questions, but maybe not by one person, but maybe a team makes a decision jointly, but then you still do the count eventually and say, oh, we pursue it or we don't pursue it, because you want to be mindful of how much time you can give to pursue a project or a lead. Yeah.
It's also not always really obvious where the problem is. So I'm lucky enough that I have a CRM, but even without a CRM, with our old Excel worksheet, we probably could figure out an issue. But I would track region, sectors, people, fees, we've had this issue before. So it's usually comes down to a little bit of investigation on my part of where could the pain point be? And specifically, like, is it one particular office? Is it a specific person? Is it a project type that we're having an issue with? Is it, so you're kind of seeing like, where are the leads and the proposals that you were pursuing? And then what were the projects that you were winning? And then we also like to track why we lost a project. So sometimes you don't get that answer, sadly, but then tracking throughout the months, years, I usually just check, is there something leading to a certain, like, did we just suddenly increase our fees too much and people started saying, "Ooh, no." So that happens too, but it takes a little bit of investigation, but I've had to and you don't need a CRM to find out that data, but maybe you have a list of projects and you can do like a quick rundown of the sectors and was it and if you are able to get intel back from why you lost a project, that's so helpful. And some clients will really give it to you. Some clients don't, and that's too bad. Or if you can find out who you lost to, that's really useful. If you're losing to a repeat like company, then you can start seeing how they're doing things. But that's a little insight. But yeah, I've been in that boat where you've had to, there's not one particular answer. So it takes a little bit of investigation of what's happening, but hopefully that helps.
Hi, my name is Elisa. I'm from Delina. And I've got two questions that are related, so answer whichever resonates most. And that's kind of, what do you do when relationships go bad? Either on the on the side of like a client turns out to be too difficult or abusive or disrespectful, like how do you step back from that relationship?
You fire them.
Well, yes. But like your question is about like, at which point. And then the other question is, what happens if someone on your team kind of sabotaged a pursuit? Like how do you do damage control and kind of save that potential project?
Well, I can speak to the abusive client. I don't think we should be working with abusive people, period. That's why I would fire them. I've had experiences where, the staff were just completely depleted after working with a particular client, and we made the decision to not work with them again. So you get to make that decision. That is your choice. If there's a situation, and I have one that I'm working on, where there was some issues with a particular project outcome, and so having to sort of repair the relationship, it's again being honest and taking the time to understand their viewpoint, understand where they felt we didn't measure up to what they had expected. Just having that conversation. Clients really appreciate that when you come back and sort of not necessarily apologize, but at least like own up to maybe your part, right? Where you didn't, do your full part. But the conversation, taking the time to have a conversation, to try to repair the relationship is critical. It may not repair the relationship, but at least you tried.
Yeah, I would also say with the first question too, making sure that the client, it really shows your employees like retention is pretty key. Especially it's hard to find and then train great employees. So that really shows something, but also just making sure that how you do release that client, you're not burning bridges, and figuring out too, maybe beforehand, are there any other potential clients that this could, the domino effect of doing that? But yeah, depending on what type of client that is. Yeah.
I would say we take one more question. It's getting really late. I appreciate you, everybody staying here and being engaged. So last question for the night.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Wansing from EHDD. Not so much I guess it's a question. I'd love to hear your thoughts on, we're so good as architects and designers and, construction, GCs, publishing our work once it's complete, but not celebrating the milestones like the wins and projects like midway. How do you feel about that? And, tagging collaborators as a BD tool, particularly on places like LinkedIn, where you've got potential clients and then you're perhaps like tapping into your partner's potential clients. I don't see a lot of firms doing that. How do you feel about that?
Lisa wants to take it.
I'm going to walk over here so people don't have to crank their neck. I was hired at EHDD as a consultant because they had 7 projects that were coming online, including the Exploratorium, Packard HQ, Land's End, and City College Chinatown campus. The challenge with projects that have a big team, including commercial, is that as an architect, you're plugging into the client's promotion schedule. And by that I mean, for example, Exploratorium, Mark Latalian, the principal, and I started meeting with the Exploratorium's PR team a year and a half before the museum was scheduled to open. And they not dictated, but they gave us the parameters for what we could release and when. Packard was even stricter. They had a lawyer on board. Jessica was here for that, was there for that. With residential, if you are the lead person, whether you're an architect or interior designer, then you can set the tone as long as your pace, as long as your client is okay with getting their work published. The challenge with publishing milestones for any project is you have to get the client approval. You have to plug into the PR schedule, and you don't want to sabotage any major PR that might be coming down the pike. But I think publishing milestones is great as long as the client is doing that. And then in terms of photographing your work and publishing it, websites and social are considered publication. So even if you're self-publishing, so if you want your project to be in AD or architectural record or digest or architect or wherever, you have to be mindful that they might look at your website and social posts as, oh, you've already published the work. So it's just something to think about.
Going back to the comment about photography though, I do want to pipe in on there because I don't think from a personal page, if somebody is trying to find ways on how to maybe upload their personal LinkedIn profile and just try and get word out there, and especially if you are doing a personal site visit, I think photos actually, they end up being really popular, especially if they're not professional photography. And then I check our group's page. Those are usually the things that get the most likes. And it's not from the company page, though. The company page is more reserved for the final finished product. And then we do use milestones, posting on the stories too. Like, so then the stories and Instagram is a great place to post non-finished projects. And it's just kind of like, it gets the word out there and gets people excited. And it's only there for a little bit and then it disappears. So there's a lot of different ways of getting the word out without having it on there forever. So that's also, it helps.
And there's a difference between your wall and your feed. So a wall is, the feed is more forgiving of what you post. A wall, people will see your wall. And so the people I've spoken with who are more concerned about curating their wall really look at it from even a quarterly or annual standpoint. Whereas if you're doing LinkedIn, if you're only looking at it as a feed, they'll see it both ways, but most people will look at it as a feed. Then you can do that. And also it doesn't, if you have a LinkedIn presence as a firm, make sure everyone in your firm is following your firm. Because if somebody goes to LinkedIn and it says 50 employees, but then they're not following you, oh, what's going on with this firm? They can't even get their people to do LinkedIn.
Yeah. I do find we use Teams in our office, and when we do post about something to get that activity up, we share it around the office. Also, some of our younger staff aren't on LinkedIn as much as some of us are. So they love when we're posting about these projects, because then they're just seeing what's happening because they haven't gone on for a while. So people get excited about it. I do remind them, stop liking just the Teams message and go on LinkedIn and go like it. So I get a little bullish with that. I'm like, no.
And LinkedIn profiles, if they're updated, can be a way a company can have a website page about with the photo and then just a link to LinkedIn. So you don't even have to write, I'm going to write a bio for this person, 20 people. If their LinkedIn is updated, you can just, and some companies don't want that because they're concerned about poaching and all that, but it is what it is.
Well, thank you, everybody, for coming here tonight. I have one more thing to announce. Oops, if I get. So the Professional Practice Committee was very vibrant at AIA San Francisco before the pandemic. We want to bring it back to life. We, Vadim and myself. So I invite everybody that is interested in practice matters, and business development, marketing is part of it. But it's also any kind of systems that you use or processes in a firm. Join us. We have the AIA San Francisco is offering the offices on, I think, the second or third Wednesday every month. And we have scheduled February 25th at 1 p.m. Join us here so we can talk about it. It's, I would say, primarily for the mid-sized firms at this point. The small firms have already a committee that is very active, and it's more for the firm 20 to 60 or bigger that wants to be there. I invite everybody to come. You can also come as a small practitioner. I'm totally fine with that. But please join us. Thank you.